Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja, coming to you today from my in-laws' backyard. Behind me is Ohio River. It's a beautiful place. And today I'll briefly be talking about one specific technique about scholarly writing. Now you already are aware that I have extensive resources on scholarly writing. But this is just one tip, and that is about summarizing the primary text and why not to do it. So if you might have noticed, especially in undergraduate writing, that people start their essay and then they are talking about a novel, and then they would spend a couple of pages in giving us a summary of the novel itself. Now, in higher level scholarly writing, that is not something desirable. And the reason behind it is that you are assuming that you are offering your work to people who are familiar with the primary text that you're talking about. And you assume that familiarity. So that means that when you're writing about a poem or about a novel, you sort of take it for granted that the reader of your essay either knows about that novel or they're going to go read it and look it up and then read your article. So a good thumb rule then for writing about a novel or about a movie or anything else is to assume that your readers know about the text. This would apply pretty much always about writing or discussing a text. You can pick out snippets of the text or what you want to point out, quote them, and then unpack them and discuss them. You just don't summarize the text for your readers. There are, of course, some exceptions. If the purpose of your essay or your article is to introduce the text, then the format would be completely different because its intent is to introduce the text. So you will then summarize and introduce the main characters and introduce the setting. But the reason you're doing that is because that is the purpose of the essay. But if the aim is to discuss how a novel represents something, how a novel talks about characters or represents certain characters, then you assume that the readers know about the novel, about its main plot, right? And then you start writing about what you intend to do with the text. So what could be a good example? Let's say I want to write something about Qurratullah Haidar's River of Fire. Now, if the purpose of my essay is to introduce River of Fire to the people, then I will say, the purpose of this essay is to introduce you to Qurratullah Haidar, one of the greatest Urdu novelists, and her major work, River of Fire. River of Fire is an expansive book, covers 2,000 years of Indian history. It's divided into these parts. Here are the main repeating characters. I'm summarizing the text somewhat because I'm introducing the text, right? But if my argument was that Qurratullah Haidar's River of Fire offers a counter-narrative to India and Pakistan's national divide, then I'll start with that. The purpose of this essay is to point out how Qurratullah Haidar imagines the partition and how she sees it as a tragedy, right? And then, assuming that people already know about Qurratullah Haidar and about the novel, I go on to discuss the instances in the novel where she highlights that sense of loss, that idea that partition was probably not a good thing, right? So that's the distinction to make. So anytime you are setting about to start an essay, and we in post-colonial studies do feel this problem a lot because most of the texts that we talk about may not be generally known by a metropolitan reading audience, right? And so we feel like it's our responsibility to introduce the text first. I would say that try to cleanse yourself of that tendency. partially because you don't owe that to other scholars in America or Canada, right? When they publish their essays about Shakespeare and Ben Jonson and John Donne, they don't take the liberty of saying Shakespeare was a British poet who was born here and published 16 plays and staged them. No, they assume that we will know that. So let's give the same burden to our metropolitan readers, right? Let's ask them, go look it up. I'm not saying in a vindictive kind of way, but the same scholastic style should apply. It doesn't matter what novel, what region are you from and are you writing about, unless the purpose of your writing is to introduce the text itself, right, to a broader audience. Then the writing style will be different. But by and large, in any sophisticated engagement with literary texts, we do not summarize the text. We do not give a summary of it, and instead just focus on our own argument and what we want to write about. So I have included this in several of my longer videos, but I thought, I should have these brief videos with one or two aspects of scholarly writing that could be useful to you, that you could think about, and that you could, make a part of your thinking process as you start or set about to write an academic article. So I hope this is useful to you. I hope the reasons that I've given are also useful to you. Just keep this in mind. If you have any questions, please do look at my playlist on scholarly writing. It pretty much covers all aspects of scholarly writing and publishing. But if there are still questions unanswered, do feel free to drop me a comment, ask me a question, or send me any of your suggestions. I'll be really grateful for that. And I do intend to produce these brief videos on these topics. So keep an eye out for these. Thank you so much. Please do share this video with others and keep supporting my channel. I'm deeply grateful for that. Please also take care of yourself, those around you, and be generous and kind as always. As always, from me to you, peace and love.